We get 9 episodes of clues each season. We're 78% done with the clues we're gonna get. Let's plot out the night of Ben's murder. Hours before Death Rattle's opening night performance, Ben fought Loretta. Why? The show has purposely left the beginning of this fight out of the footage. We need to learn what instigated Ben and Loretta fighting. Now let's theorize. Maybe Ben found out that Loretta was Dickie's mother, and she was encouraging Dickie to stand up for himself and get away from Ben. What started that fight? We know Charles saw it. Jerry Blau heard it. Did anyone else see the fight? Someone stole Ben's mangoes and replaced them with sweet treats like cookies that are not on the CoBro diet. Here we reach a fork in the road. Either those cookies were filled with rat poison, but they were eaten by Ben too, or they were not filled with rat poison because that would have shown up in Ben's system. Did this person also steal Ben's medicine because the drugs he was getting from Dr. C didn't show up in the toxology report? Or did Dickie do some behind-the-scenes work to hide those drugs from coming out in Ben's autopsy? Someone sneaks into KT's office and locks the door and puts something in the paper shredder. Did they shred a bad review of Death Rattle? Did they shred something around Loretta being Dickie's mother? Could the shredded doc have been Tobert's contract to make the documentary, which he claims Dickie ended that contract on opening night? Did Dickie end it by shredding it? Joy fixes the red mark on Ben's face. After Joy leaves Ben's dressing room, he's alone in the dressing room with those dangerous cookies, and he gives a monologue about how eating them will destroy his career. Then most likely he, or I guess a small chance Dickie or Loretta, write effing pig on his mirror. Ben collapses on stage. Later, he's wheeled out of the Gooseberry Theater with a sheet not covering his face, as if he was dead. Instead, his face is exposed, despite his brother Dickie saying they pronounced him. A few hours later, Ben pops up back alive. At the after party, Ben gets a call from someone. We still don't know who. The only characters we can think of who were not in Oliver's apartment at that time would be Tobert, maybe Dr. C, or if he exists, maybe Ben too. By 12:06 a.m., Stalker Greg has stolen Ben's death rattle hanky. The killer is still in the Arconia at 12:26 and pushes Ben Glenroy down the elevator shaft. Who is the killer? The constable in the play may know. He says, "I pick you." Let's solve Only Murders in the Building, Season 3, Episode 7, CoBro. Charles finds an unexpected source for a major clue. A Broadway icon comes knocking at Oliver's door, and Mabel forms an alternate trio to pursue a lead that sheds light on Ben's bro and CoBro history. We'll be breaking down each episode for clues, suspects, and red herrings on the hunt to learn who killed Ben Glenroy. Spoilers for all of Season 3 up through Episode 7 of Only Murders in the Building. If you haven't seen all these episodes, pause this video, save Ferris, and then come back and watch. This week, we're going to review the suspects and feedback like usual, everything like usual, but I'm going to introduce 2 new theories that are bubbling up. And if you, like me, love the Loretta song Look for the Light, which Kimber duetted on, here at Double PHQ, our podcast host, Double M Matt Murdoch, is a professional musician. He's toured around the world. He's going to be on the podcast after your feedback with his musical analysis of the song Look for the Light. And guess what? In that analysis, Matt has found triplets. Ooh, get ready. And just for your sanity and mine, we will not discuss the Martin Short uproar that happened online because of a very poorly written article. Use the timestamps below to jump to the topic or suspect that you want to hear and skip past stuff you don't want to hear. Hey, I've got a new poll out this week I want you to vote in. Which podcast trio do you like best? The OG trio, Charles, Oliver, and Mabel? The new school trio, Mabel, Theo, and Tobert? Or do you like the Villains podcast trio of Cinda, Cindy, and Poppy? Time for the opening credits, double E, Easter eggs. If you look in Charles's apartment, he's got new wallpaper that matches the death rattle hanky. As a quick aside, if you want homework this week, Kenneth Branagh is doing his 3rd movie as Hercule Poirot. It's a movie, A Haunting in Venice, based on her novel Halloween Party. Now, her novel Halloween Party is not set in Venice, Italy. This movie's going to be very different. I do think the killer or killers might be the same. Watch it this weekend. I'm going to watch it this weekend. And we're going to talk about it on our social media stuff at PHQ. That's the word double, single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters, at PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook.com/PHQ. Hey, write us here on the YouTube chat and we can discuss it as well. All right, I mentioned 2 new theories, and let's get to this first one this week. I call it the No Symbolism Theory. This season, we've been focusing on the show's symbolism to help us spot the killer. 3 dolls and Death Rattle Dazzle. Could that symbolize 3 possible brothers, Dickie, Ben 1, and Ben 2? The monologue from the audition about a parental figure willing to kill to protect a child. Is that a hint that parental figure Loretta, is the killer? Or Mother Donna killing to protect her son's first play? Now, the original play, Death Rattle, focused on a baby being responsible for killing. Does that mean the child is the killer, like Dickie, or Cliff, or Ben 2? I love all these theories. I really do hope this symbolism comes through in the final solution. But there's also something nagging at the back of my mind, and that's this No Symbolism Theory. Season 2 had a very heavy parent and child theme running throughout it. Charles had issues with his father, Mabel and her father. Oliver questioned if he was the true father to his son Will. Charles had problems with his daughter figure Zoe. Teddy and Theo had issues. Even Marv, our Cognac Marv, was trying to impress his daughter. There was so much emphasis put on parent and child in season 2, and then the killer turned out to be, I don't see much of a parent-child theme with Poppy Becky killer. No parent-child concept in her motive or plan of all. So, are we making the same mistake in Season 3? In honor of that, I'll present the No Symbolism Theory. A user with the handle Blue Penguin wrote, "It could be a red herring. There's a scene where Howard is waving around a hanky, and it's not the death rattle hanky that we know he got. He showed that to us in Season 3, Episode 1. Howard does have a bit of a parental issue. His mom told him he shouldn't be an actor. But Howard's not a twin, Howard's not a parental figure. Howard could have killed for Jonathan to get the role, or his own dreams. Howard says that KT's office is locked, but nobody corroborates that. KT denies it. Could Howard be the killer? Now, if you're brand new to us and our videos and our podcast here, I am very hesitant to point the finger at Howard, and let me explain why. In Season 1, we saw this note, "I'm just tired of feeling lonely. I don't want to be this lonely anymore." Charles uses this note and the J's to finger Jan for being the killer in Season 1. But at the beginning of Season 2, I realized this is a fake out. Look at these eyes in this note. These eyes absolutely match the eyes from Howard's notes about the building meeting in Season 2. In Season 2, I proved that Howard wrote this note. Look, the I is the same, the N is the same. Howard wrote this note about feeling lonely, and I was positive I'd solved Howard being the killer. And then, of course, this never came up. It could be a red herring. Maybe this is something they're going to pull out later. But I was broken. I mean, it's not just the I. Look at the N. Look at all these letters. They match the note. The E's match every letter. I mean, I want to do every letter to prove I was right. But of course, Howard wasn't the killer. Howard didn't do it in Season 2. So I've been very hesitant to point the finger at Howard. But let's review the clues this season. Howard immediately comes out and tells Oliver that Ben's first death is not his fault. How did he know that? Howard keeps pushing for somebody else to sponsor the play, his cousin from State Farm, not Donna and Cliff. He wants to cut him out for some reason. Howard doesn't listen to Oliver. Howard has a key to the theater so he could get in and steal Ben's mangoes, put cookies in the dressing room. Howard didn't have his hanky that he should have had because Charles only took hankies from the other actors. He didn't take them from somebody like Howard, who KT in Episode 1 pointed out it was a bit shocking that Howard did have a hanky. Could Howard be the no symbolism killer? Well, I'm still gun shy. I will still not suspect him, number one. But hey, what do you think? Could Howard be our non-symbolism killer? Let me know in the comments. Our Cognacs, you know I love to give you guys challenges because I have to say this stupid, hey, leave a comment, like the video, subscribe all the time. So hey, let's make it a bit fun. Our Cognacs, I know you're sick of me saying it, I'm sick of me saying it, but YouTube always makes me say, I need you to subscribe, I need you to comment down below, and I need you to like the video. Our video on episode 5 has the most likes of any video in season 3, 485. Let's see if we can get more than 485 likes on this video. Arconiacs, let's do it. Let's do it for Ben. Okay, Ben may have been a jerk. Let's do it for the Ben too, who might be a good guy, who maybe killed his brother. Let's do it for anybody. Let's do it for Winnie. Let's do it for Miss Gambellini. Let's do it for President McKinley. I need those likes. I have to say it every week. Thank you guys so much. Before we run down the suspects, let's see what episode 7 taught us about the victim, actor Ben Glenroy. Ben tells the world that he came up with the idea for CoBro when he was a kid. Did he come up with CoBro's catchphrase, "Your history"? Now, in this one shot, we see that Ben's TV show Girl Cop aired on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Now, is there some symbolism in this? Matthew Broderick joked about dating a high school student while preparing to get ready for his role in Election. Did Ben get busy with the girl who's supposed to be a high school girl in Girl Cop? Did he get that co-star pregnant? Ben told insensitive jokes, he got DUIs, and he sent thousands of dick pics. Which of the dick pic triplets did it? Ben loved boba. No, not Bobo. He loved boba and Funny Dog Video Instagram. Ben set all the clocks he had ahead 20 minutes early, so he'd always be fashionably late. Ben died the second time, the most important time, at 12:26 a.m. Ooh, how late were Charles, Oliver, and Mabel going to the Pickle Diner that opening night? Now let's look at the suspects. We're going to start with Donna, the producer. Donna begs Oliver to call Charles and bring him back to the show. For somebody who wants her son Cliff's first producing show to go well, she is allowing the show to move forward at a very rushed rate. Nobody would open an unseen musical like this in real life. Cliff, famous for his stress dancing, called in the sweet mother of Sondheim, Matthew Broderick, to replace Charles. With those stress dances and Cliff's flip during the read-through, are we supposed to take note of how agile Cliff is? Dickie, Ben's adopted brother and assistant. Dickie is auctioning off all of Ben's stuff. And even though he claims to always be upset about people making a buck off his dead brother, he wants to get rid of all of it. And he busts Mabel for trying to make a buck on her podcast about his brother's death. He doesn't think CoBro 2 aged well because of the poor special effects. Here we learned the thing that some early reviews spoiled. The Glenroys adopted Dickie when they thought they couldn't have any children, and then Miracle Ben happened. Dickie spent his whole life cleaning up the messes that his younger brother got into, but the younger brother Ben said that his acting supported Dickie and their mother when they were growing up. When did the father disappear? Dickie doesn't act guilty in some ways. He's very happy that Crazy Greg is locked up. He blames himself for taking his eyes off Ben when Ben died. Now on the flip side, Dickie hears from Mabel that she has a theory about the death rattle hanky, and then later he buys a hanky off Uma. Did Dickie have a death rattle hanky of his own, or was he buying back his own hanky? And what do you think about CoBro? Did Dickie create it? Tobert is such a fan of the Only Murders in the Building podcast, he knows who Theo is. Tobert can also pull together a bunch of great audio equipment himself, and Tobert pitches a Bloody Mabel podcast just like Cinda Canning pitched that a few episodes ago. And we get feedback from many people like P.S. I Love You who say Tobert is working for Cinda Canning. Uma Heller, heck yeah, Bunny and Uma, name a more iconic duo. That said, Uma is very lonely now that Bunny's gone. And she's been stealing stuff for years. She stole Bunny's fidget spinner. She stole a little tiny figurine outside Howard's apartment while he was yodeling inside. To Uma, there are 3 types of people: alive, dead, and dead to me. In a scene that doesn't make too much sense, somehow Uma got back to Ben's dead body after leaving Charles, Oliver, and Mabel, and she stole that hanky. Then she sold it for $7,000 to the snake dork upstairs, Dickie. A fun Easter egg in all of Uma's stolen goods. Hey, there's a painting of Teddy Demas in her closet. Whoa. Theo Demas is back. Love triangle. Theo is who Mabel calls to help her move out of her apartment. She doesn't call Tobert. Theo is much smarter than Mabel. He's like, hey, you're investigating Ben's death. Look at his brother Dickie. Now we do get a handwriting sample from Theo to match the one we got from Tobert earlier. Do you guys recognize anything? Ferris Bueller. Now, Matthew Broderick told Oliver, when I commit to a show, I commit to a show fully. Boy, Oliver did not know what he was getting into. Matthew Broderick did not kill Ben Glenroy, but he does seem to lie. He says for his role in Election, he taught high school and dated students. Now, this is a spoiler for a great film, Election. You should watch Election if you have not yet seen it. But I'm pretty sure his character does not date a student in Election. Doesn't his character kiss his wife's friend or something? He doesn't date a high school student. If you want to have an Election debate, go down in the comments. Yes, his character was obsessed with Tracy Flick, but okay, let's leave it there. Oliver Putnam. Oliver hates all the Pickwick triplet singers. I feel so seen. Oliver is also not that big a fan of the theater. He never once saw the producers. Get him, Mel Brooks. Oliver shows Charles the scrapbook. They plan to win Mabel back with the scrapbook as a clue to Ben's killer. Charles Hayden Savage. Too old for Ferris Bueller and friend of the Philharmonic, Charles is pretty jumpy for having not killed Uma's best friend Bunny. Charles is back in Death Rattle Dazzle, and maybe, just maybe, he can be close to a winner of a Patsy again. You're still here? Go home. Go. Hilarious! Mabel Mora. I am burying the lead. Mabel moved out of the Arconia. Holy smokes. Forget who killed Ben. What do you guys think is going on? Is Mabel going to end up in the Arconia? Is she gone for good? Let's hear your thoughts down in the comments at DoublePHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Threads. Talk to us, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. How is Mabel going to get back in the Arconia? Or is she gone for good? I hate to keep busting Mabel, but she is so rough as a detective. When she approaches Dickie in the silent auction, she didn't say, "Oh man, I was a huge fan of Girl Cop," but instead she pretended to love CoBro, which she knew nothing about. What the kids would call an epic fail. Now let's get to the second theory we'll talk about this week, and it's the Shakespeare Theory. Feedback from Beverly Littlejohn wrote, there was a Shakespeare reference right at the very beginning, Season 3, Episode 1. When Oliver, Charles, and Mabel are in the elevator and they're making a reference about men playing women's roles in Shakespeare times. Then Sweet Jess points out there's been a reference to Shakespeare or a Shakespeare play in every episode this season. And in episode 6, they focus on the play Richard II. Richard, as we all know, can sometimes get nicknamed as Dick or Dickie. Is Dickie Richard II, the second brother, the second of 3 brothers, or just the second brother? That's not very much to go on, but what do you guys think? Should we look at Shakespeare, the play's the thing, as a clue for the murder is the thing? Now let's get to your feedback. Natalie gave us this feedback and said, we're in the Gooseberry Theater, and gooseberry is slang for a third wheel. More triplet evidence, Natalie believes. Natalie also believes that the fake-out death of the fish President McKinley, wait, no, he's okay, reinforces somebody miraculously coming back from the dead like Ben did the first time he died. The Chris Hype wrote, my money says that Loretta's scrapbook doesn't even belong to Loretta, it's Ben's. If you look at what Ben did to Sting/Amy Schumer's apartment, he filled it top to bottom with photos of himself. He's a notorious narcissist, and it would only make sense that Ben himself would own a book completely dedicated to pictures of himself. Loretta stole the book due to the photos of her biological son, Dickie. Ooh. The Silver Scale looked at episode 6 and said, I believe the first murder attempt, the poisoning on Ben, happened via the errant smoke machine that also went off on Charles in the supply closet. Alexander wrote, I feel like the play itself, Death Rattle and Death Rattle Dazzle, could lend some clues, especially since we don't know who the villain is in the play. If the detective and the nanny had a fight scene in the play, does that mean the nanny was the murderer? Angela wrote, I don't know if Loretta is really that into Oliver. I mean, if you watch carefully the scenes where they kiss, Loretta always seems reluctant. When Oliver arrived at her place and he tried to kiss her, she turned away. In the ferry, he went for a kiss, but Loretta seemed reluctant. And then when they were on the bed, Loretta suddenly found an excuse to get up. Angela ends her feedback with, I don't know guys, something feels off here. Bethan Evans wrote, don't forget that Charles used to see an imaginary pig in the first series. Is it possible Charles wrote the note effing pig on Ben's mirror as he experienced a White Room episode? I think it'll turn out that Charles killed Ben and not remembered. The group haven't done much podcasting this season, but I think they're losing their pull on each other, and this season they break apart the trio. But at the end, when each individually realize Charles killed Ben, they'll get back together and cover it up as a pact. It's their act of friendship and loyalty to the trio. Whoa, ice cold, hell yeah. Peaceful Ganja wrote, "It feels like Tobert is intentionally misleading, distracting, and disrupting the trio." What do you guys think? We're 7 episodes in. I'm not sure Tobert has done anything outwardly obvious that he's a bad guy. But do you think Tobert is a bad guy? Okay, let's get to this wonderful section I think you're going to love. Matt Murdock breaking down Look for the Light.
Hi everybody, Matt here with another musical analysis, this time for Only Murders in the Building. No, I am not going to sing the Pickwick Triplets song because I would go into the White Room just like Charles, just like Bubba. Instead, let's play Let's Solve Broadway Musicals. And we're going to look at Look for the Light, the song performed by Meryl Streep. Very moving piece for me. It was really nice, but it does have some what we call formulaic things about it that a lot of Broadway musical songs have, a lot of pop songs have. First, let's talk about the forms, because typically a lot of songs that people do find popular have some key characteristics in common. One of the things is the form. There's usually an A section and a B section. Now, sometimes the B section acts as a bridge. Sometimes it only acts as like a chorus almost. But usually you can tell the difference. You can feel a shift in the music change when the big message is being brought out. And that, of course, is the case here. It's the case with most popular songs. Actually, it's the formula for almost every song written, unless somebody's just trying to be truly independent. And this song actually has a harmonic progression that's very similar to a lot of other songs that kind of gives it that Broadway sound or gives it that pop sound. And I'll cite a couple of examples as we go as well. But first, I want to talk about why this performance is so moving. If you don't know Meryl Streep's history in film and in theater, I suppose, she's a very good musical theater actress. I'd even call her a musical theater queen, in my opinion. If you haven't watched it, and I know some people have some strikes against it, but I really enjoyed her performances in the Into the Woods movie, particularly 2 cuts, Stay With Me and Last Midnight. I thought that those were both wonderful performances. Stay With Me is another very powerful performance. Because Streep has the ability to use drama in her voice as she sings, and a lot of great artists do, but she really has it mastered, where she sings softly, where she pronounces more, where the throat opens up and everything gets very powerful. She's really got that thing, as we like to say in the business. She could have easily have been a pop star if she wanted to be, I think, if she just wanted to sing. And that's what makes the performance really moving. Also, the melodic shape, the way that it noodles around that 5th note of the chord or of the harmony a lot. And so that when it expands, then you feel the drama of that going from the A section to the B section. And another thing is the way that the rhythm changes between the A section and the B section. So let's go through this A section first. It's centered in minor. And minor tends to make us feel a little darker, not necessarily scared all the time, or not necessarily even completely sad, but it makes things more serious. And so the A section sounds like this. What you have there is a descending bass line in the minor key, but it's kind of going chromatically, and that allows for the adjustment of really what is a major 4 chord, meaning that the 4th step, any harmonies attached to it, can now be major instead of minor. Anytime you have something in the 4 chord, the 4th note, where the lowest bass note is actually playing the 3rd of that chord, it gives you a sense of melancholy. It gives you a sense of just a little bit of life being drained out, which is always a great setup for things becoming happier, as they tend to do in the bridge section. When you start in the more serious mode, then you get the more reassuring mode in the bridge. And the reverse can be the case too, which we will see. But the first thing I want to point out is how often this progression is used. Right off the top of my head, as soon as I heard this piece, I thought of 2 examples, one a pop example and one basically another musical theater example. But I just played that progression for you. Now, it is done twice as fast in the Jim Croce version of Time in a Bottle, but it's the exact same progression. Sounds like this. And so right off the bat, this song seems familiar, which draws us to it. Hence the formula, hence why a lot of people use it, because it works. And then here is My Funny Valentine, that uses a similar progression, even though it doesn't use waltz time signature or 3/4 time signature. It uses 4/4, but the progression is the same. Now, one of the things about Look for the Light that makes it really great for this particular series is because a lot of the music that is composed is triplet oriented. It's organized in 3s. Even though sometimes those triplets are played over a 4/4 meter, they're still organized in 3s. Da dat da da dat da da dat da da. You know, the old piano bit there that's in a lot of those things that go under Bubba's talking a lot. That's triplet-oriented stuff. And so even if you're not feeling 3s by the downbeats, you're still getting this sense of 3 in it. And so a waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, works perfectly with this piece. I mentioned how the melody has a lot of noodling around the 5th position of the scale. The 5th position always indicates to us that everything needs to go somewhere. And that's exactly what happens when we get to the bridge. Now, anytime an A section is repeated right after another A section, it's set up harmonically to go back to that minor sound. And these are all dominant chords, and that is actually based on that 5th note as well when it goes back to the A section like this. But when we go to the next section, to the B section is in the relative major. Then we set up a different chord underneath the same note, which helps us lead to the major part instead of back to the minor part. Meaning that if you were to go along that scale and go up 3 of the steps, you would be at a key center that emphasizes more safe thoughts, happier thoughts, hopeful thoughts. I mean, that's exactly what this chorus does. Now, I'm not going to break down the lyrics because I believe that everybody should interpret lyrics in their own way, and I don't believe my way is any better than yours or your way is any better than mine. So we'll skip that part, but listen to how this major section changes the tone, the feeling of everything from that minor. With the minor thing, the woman is telling these triplets, yeah, things are scary out there. But then we go to the major part, and now the woman is telling the kids, don't worry. If you do get scared, come home. I'm here. I will keep you safe. And this is what the music sounds like. Now, there's something really interesting that happens rhythmically with the melody. Not only is the shape getting much bigger, there are bigger jumps up, there are bigger swoops down, but the notes are being held out longer in more cases than they were in the verse. In the verse, there's a lot of this dot, da, 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 and that creates tension. But here, in order to release the tension, to make you feel safer, the notes become longer. I will. I mean, that's not the right key, but, that's the key I can sing it in. Reassuring words with long notes create reassurance. And it is something that makes it different from the A section, which keeps the music interesting for all of us. Now, once again, it went to the relative major. There are lots of pop songs, lots of Broadway songs, and the two examples that I gave for the A section, you can also use for the B section. Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle goes to the relative major of its minor key. Guess what? So does My Funny Valentine. Whoops, I played that in the wrong meter. I've been playing everything in 3 lately, and so it came out in 3. Sorry. Anyway, my point is that it's very formulaic. And there's nothing wrong with that, because formulaic has always sold as far as music goes. Now, sometimes you might get the reverse. Sometimes you may have a pop song that actually starts out major, and then the bridge or the chorus is minor. Either is very effective. It just indicates a change of tone and keeps the song interesting and helps drive the song. Again, in this case, the relative minor is this center, and the relative major is this center. The other thing that occurs in the B section is kind of an inversion of what happens in the A section, in the fact that in the A section, we have this progression going down to something that will substitute for a 4 major. And that is what adds just a little bit of hope to the darker part. At the same time, a bittersweetness comes out because we get a 4 minor chord in the relative major. The 4 chord is always the one that dictates those kind of in-between feelings. Because you can have a major key, and if you stick a minor 4 in there, suddenly there's a tinge of sadness in it. At the same time, if you start in a minor key and you add a major 4 chord, you get just a little sense of happiness in it. That's how weird our brain processes a 12-tone system. Anyway, you know that I've babbled on enough, but hopefully for you, we have now solved what makes a Broadway musical. This has been Matt. Take care. Which of the Pickwick triplets did it? Which of the Swan had the brawn to kill? White Room.
We're going to be back next week with Season 3, Episode 8, Sitz Probe. If you're wondering what a Sitz Probe is, Sitz Probe is a seated rehearsal. It's where the singers sing with the orchestra, focusing attention on integrating the two groups. Next week, let's integrate our two groups, those who think there is a Ben twin and those who don't. Talk to you next week.